Hello friends, here we are going to discuss about some of the neurological disorders like dementia, schizophrenia, Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. First we are going to look dementia. So, what is dementia? It's a group of thinking and social symptoms that interferes with the daily functioning. It's not a specific disease. Dementia is a group of conditions characterized by impairment of at least two brain functions such as memory loss and judgment. So, actually, dementia is not a specific disease, but it is a group of thinking and social symptoms that interfere with our daily functioning. It is characterized by the impairment of at least two brain functions such as memory loss and judgment. Here we can see another definition for dementia. A progressive deterioration of intellect, behavior and personality due to diffuse disease of cerebral hemisphere maximally affecting the cerebral cortex and hippocampus. Here, dementia is maximally affecting the cerebral cortex and hippocampus, and it is also the deterioration of intellect, behavior and personality due to diffuse disease of cerebral hemisphere. Some common signs and symptoms of dementia are mentioned below. They are memory loss, impaired judgment, difficulty with abstract thinking, faulty reasoning, inappropriate behavior, loss of communication skills, disorientation of place and time, gait, motor and balance problems, neglect of personal care and safety, hallucinations, paranoia and agitation. Some of the risk factors of dementia are blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, heart diseases, diabetes, vascular diseases, head injury, inflammatory stress, tumor, HIV infection, some immunological disorders, depression, stress, poor education, low physical activity, poor nutrition, overweight, drugs, smoking, alcohol, age, sex, genetics. These all can cause dementia. Here is another picture which shows what is dementia. So, dementia is an umbrella term used to describe a set of symptoms that can include changes in thinking, judgment, language, memory, perception, reasoning, attention, or concentration, and must be severe enough to interfere with a personal ability to function. Now we move to the classification of dementia. First, the classification based on the cause. First, Alzheimer's disease. The 60% of all cases of dementia are Alzheimer's disease, and second is the cerebrovascular diseases. 20% of all dementia patients are cerebrovascular diseases, in which multi-infarct, atherosclerotic dementia and subcortical vascular disease, Binswanger's disease are included. And the third one is the neurodegenerative. Examples are Pick's diseases, Huntington's chorea, Parkinson's disease. And fourth one, infections, Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease, HIV, viral encephalitis, progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy are included in infections. And the fifth one is a normal pressure hydrocephalus. And sixth one is nutritional, which includes Wernicke-Korsakoff. It's due to thiamine deficiency, and B12 deficiency, folate deficiency are under nutritional. And the metabolic classification includes hepatic diseases, thyroid disease, parathyroid disease and Cushing's syndrome. And chronic inflammatory includes collagen vascular diseases and vasculitis, multiple sclerosis. And the ninth one is a trauma is due to head injury, punch-drunk syndrome are under trauma, and finally tumor is a subfrontal meningoma. Some cases are treatable up to but the 10 to 50% are reversible. Here the classification based on site is mentioned. In which part of the brain is affected, the dementia is classified into anterior, posterior, subcortical and cortical. In anterior, frontal premotor cortex is affected, in which behavioral changes, loss of inhibition, antisocial behavior, facile and irresponsible characteristics are found. Example: normal pressure, hydrocephalus, Huntington's chorea, metabolic disease. In posterior, parietal and temporal lobes are affected, in which disturbance of cognitive function, memory and language without marked change in behavior are the characteristics or are expressed. Example is Alzheimer's disease. Subcortical, next is subcortical. It is apathetic and characterized by forgetful and slow, poor ability to use knowledge, associated with other neurological signs and movement disorders. Example is Parkinson disease, AIDS, dementia complex, etc. And finally, the cortical part is affected, in which higher cortical abnormalities are seen, which characteristics are dysphasia, agnosia, apraxia, and the example is Alzheimer's disease. So that's all for dementia. Next we going to look about schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a serious mental illness that affects how a person thinks, feels and behaves. People with schizophrenia may seem like they have lost touch with reality, which causes significant distress for the individual, their family members and friends. So, schizophrenia is a serious mental illness that affects a person's thinking, feelings and behavior, and also the persons with schizophrenia may lose the touch with reality. It will create a great difficulty for their family members and friends and the individuals, etc. Schizophrenia comes in many varieties. One of the most common types is seen in the person who hears voices and has delusions of grandeur, intense fear or other types of feelings that are unreal. Schizophrenia comes under many varieties, but the most common type of schizophrenia is that the feeling that possess unreal feelings are happening in the individuals. That is the most common variety. Many schizophrenics are highly paranoid with a sense of persecution from outside sources. They may develop incoherent speech, dissociation of ideas, and abnormal sequences of thought, and they are often withdraw, sometimes with abnormal posture and even rigidity. So many schizophrenics are highly paranoid. Paranoid means they have a fear that other people will attack them or harm them. That feeling develops in schizophrenic patients with a sense of persecution from outside sources. They may develop incoherent speech, dissociation of ideas, and abnormal sequences of thought. They are often withdrawn, sometimes with abnormal posture and even rigidity. So totally there will be an impairment in thinking, ideas, their thoughts are impaired, and they are often withdrawn with abnormal postures and even rigidity. There are some symptoms of schizophrenia. Symptoms are positive symptoms are delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech. Negatives are flattened affect, reduced speech, lack of initiative, etc. are the symptoms. There are reasons to believe that schizophrenia results from one or more of three possibilities. So three possibilities are reasons for the origin of schizophrenia, or they results in schizophrenia. First one is the Multiple areas in the cerebral cortex prefrontal lobes in which neural signals have become blocked. Over processing of the signals become dysfunctional because many synapses normally excited by the neurotransmitter glutamate lose their responsiveness to this transmitter. So we have already studied about the cerebral cortex, prefrontal lobes, etc. In which here the neural signals of these cerebral cortex prefrontal lobes are blocked or become blocked, or where processing of the signals becomes dysfunctional because many synapses normally excited by the neurotransmitter glutamate lose their response to this transmitter. So they lose their response towards the transmitter. This is the one reason for schizophrenia, and the second one is excessive excitement of a group of neurons that secrete dopamine in the behavioral centers of the brain, including in the frontal lobes. Here, excessive excitement of a group of neurons that secrete dopamine. So, dopamine secreting group of neurons have a tendency to excite rapidly in the behavior centers of the brain, including the frontal lobes. This is the second reason, and the third one is the abnormal function of a crucial part of the brain's limbic behavioral control system centered around the hippocampus. We already studied about the hippocampus and the limbic system in the brain. Here there will be a abnormal functioning in the limbic behavior control system, which is centered around the hippocampus. The reason for believing that the prefrontal lobes are involved in schizophrenia is that schizophrenic-like pattern of mental activity can be induced in monkeys by making multiple minute lesions in widespread areas of the prefrontal lobes. So in the previous slide we told that prefrontal lobes of the cerebral cortex is greatly affected, or the signals of the prefrontal lobes are blocked. It is the one of the reason for schizophrenia. So the reason for believing that the prefrontal lobes are involved in schizophrenia is that schizophrenic-like pattern of mental activity can be induced in monkeys by making multiple minute lesions in widespread areas of the prefrontal lobe. So an experiment done in monkeys can be explained that the prefrontal lobes are involved in schizophrenia, and dopamine has been implicated as a possible cause of schizophrenia because many patients with Parkinson's disease develop schizophrenic-like symptoms when they are treated with a drug called IDOPA. This drug releases dopamine in the brain, which is advantageous for treating Parkinson's disease, but at the same time it depresses various portions of the prefrontal lobes and other related areas. So dopamine has a great role in the schizophrenia. Dopamine has been implicated as a possible cause of schizophrenia because many patients with Parkinson's disease develop schizophrenic-like symptoms when they are treated with a drug called IDOPA. IDOPA, we will see later, it is a drug used for the treatment of Parkinson's disease. This drug releases dopamine. So this drug has a capability to release dopamine in the brain, which advantages for treating Parkinson's disease. But at the same time, it depresses various portions of the prefrontal lobes. Because of this depression of the prefrontal lobes, some symptoms of the schizophrenia are also expressed in the patients of Parkinson's disease. It has been suggested that in schizophrenia, excess dopamine is secreted by a group of dopamine secreting neurons whose cell bodies lie in the ventral tegmentum of the mesencephalon, medial and superior to the substantia nigra. These neurons give rise to the so-called mesolimbic dopaminergic system that projects nerve fibers and dopamine secretion into the medial and anterior portions of the limbic system, especially into the hippocampus, amygdala, anterior caudate nucleus, and portions of the prefrontal lobes. All of these are powerful behavior control centers. As we already discussed, the reasons for one of the reasons for the schizophrenia are the over excitement of the neurons which secrete dopamine. So excess dopamine is secreted by a group of dopamine secreting neurons. The dopamine is secreted mainly into the areas like medial and anterior portions of the limbic system, especially into hippocampus, amygdala, anterior caudate nucleus, and portions of the prefrontal lobes. All these areas are powerful behavior control centers. An even more compelling reason for believing that schizophrenia might be caused by excess production of dopamine is that many drugs that are effective in treating schizophrenia, such as chlorpromazine, haloperidol, and thiotixine, all either decrease secretion of dopamine at dopaminergic nerve endings or decrease the effect of dopamine on subsequent neurons. So here is a believing reason that substantiate that over dopamine production is a cause for schizophrenia is that some of the drugs that are used for treat schizophrenia is very effective that reduces the dopamine secretion, such as chlorpromazine, haloperidol, and thiotixine. Finally, possible involvement of the hippocampus in schizophrenia was discovered recently when it was learned that in schizophrenia the hippocampus is often reduced in size, especially in the dominant hemisphere. So, recently the involvement of hippocampus in schizophrenia was discovered that the hippocampus is often reduced in size, especially in the dominant hemisphere in the schizophrenic patients. Here is a picture, overall picture showing the symptoms of schizophrenia. We already discussed about that. They may possess poor memory, crying without reason, speech disorder, auditory hallucinations, lack of motivation, visual hallucinations, aggressive behavior, love without reason. And these are some of the symptoms of schizophrenic patients. Now, schizophrenia diagnosis and treatment. They can be diagnosed and treated by, we already discussed some of the drugs that are used for schizophrenia effectively, which causes the decrease of the production of dopamine. Here some treatments like patient compliance, medication, psychotherapy are effective for treatment of schizophrenia. Schizophrenia mainly affects approximately 1% of the world population. Clinical guidelines recommend a combination of antipsychotic medication along with psychotherapy, psychoeducation, and self-help is effective for schizophrenic patient. It's a main treatment. Effective treatment may allow people living with the condition to enjoy fulfilling life. So that's all for schizophrenia. Next, we are moving to Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is defined as premature aging of the brain, usually beginning in mid-adult life and progressing rapidly to extreme loss of mental powers, similar to that seen in very old age. So, Alzheimer's disease is very familiar to us, and we all know it is defined as a premature aging of brain. It begins at the mid-adult life and progressively it will lead to an extreme loss of mental powers, which is similar to that seen in very old age. The clinical features of Alzheimer's disease include an amnestic type of memory impairment, which means a loss of memory and deterioration of language, and visuospatial deficits. Visuospatial deficit means a person's capacity to identify visual and spatial relationships among objects This particular kind of visual spatial characteristics of a human is damaging due to Alzheimer's disease. Motor and sensory abnormalities, giant disturbances, and seizures are uncommon until the late phases of the disease. During the late phases of disease, the symptoms like motor and sensory abnormalities, giant disturbances, which means the person's manner of walking, and seizures, which means a burst of uncontrolled electrical activity between the brain cells, are uncommon. One consistent finding in Alzheimer's disease is loss of neurons in the part of limbic pathway that drives the memory process. Loss of this memory function is devastating. So, the one consistent finding in Alzheimer's disease is loss of neurons in the part of limbic pathway that drives memory process. So, limbic pathway which drives the memory process, the neurons in that area is destroyed, or the loss of neurons in that part of limbic pathway is disturbed. Loss of this memory function is devastating. So loss of memory, eventually loss of memory is happening. Alzheimer's disease is a progressive fatal neurodegenerative disorder that we all know. It's a neurodegenerative disorder that results in impairment of a person's ability to perform activities of daily living, as well as variety of neuropsychiatric symptoms and behavioral disturbances in the later stages of the disease. Alzheimer's disease mainly affects the person's ability to perform activities of daily living, as well as a variety of neuropsychiatric symptoms. Neuropsychiatric symptoms includes both neurology and psychiatry, like seizures, attention deficit disorders, cognitive deficient disorders are included in neuropsychiatric symptoms, as well as behavioral disturbances also seen in the later stages of the disease. Patients with Alzheimer's disease usually require a continuous care within a few years after the disease begins. So it is important to have a continuous care or towards the Alzheimer's disease patient. It is the only, or it's the most important treatment towards Alzheimer's patients, which should be given within a few years after the disease begins. Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia in the elderly, and more than 5 million people in the United States are estimated to be afflicted by this disorder. So Alzheimer's disease is most common form of dementia, and more than 5 million people in the United States are estimated to be afflicted by this disorder. The percentage of persons with Alzheimer's disease approximately doubles with every 5 years of age, with about 1% of 60-year-olds and 30% of 85-year-olds having this disease. So the percentage of persons with Alzheimer's disease is progressively increasing year by year. It doubles with every 5 years of age, with about 1% of 60-year-olds and about 30% of 85-year-olds having the disease. Here is a pictorial representation which shows normal brain and a Alzheimer's disease brain. In normal brains, the lobes are seen clearly, and in Alzheimer's disease brain, there is a shrinkage of cerebral cortex, enlarged ventricle, shrinkage of hippocampus can be seen, and also there is a beta plaques in the neurons instead of healthy neurons, and neurofibrillary tangles are also seen in Alzheimer's disease neurons when compared to healthy neurons. Alzheimer's disease is associated with accumulation of brain beta amyloid peptide. Pathologically, one finds increased amount of beta amyloid peptide in the brains of patients with Alzheimer's disease. The peptide accumulates in amyloid plaques which range in diameter from 10 micrometers to several hundred micrometers and are found in widespread area of the brain including in the cerebral cortex, hippocampus, basal ganglia, thalamus and even the cerebellum. Thus Alzheimer's disease appears to be metabolic degenerative disease. So here beta amyloid peptide can be seen widely or their amount is very much increased in the brains of patients with Alzheimer's disease. The peptide accumulates in amyloid plaques and it is range in diameter from 10 micrometer to several hundred micrometers and are found widespread areas in the brain including in the cerebral cortex, hippocampus, basal ganglia, thalamus and even the cerebellum. Thus, Alzheimer's disease appears to be a metabolic degenerative disease. Vascular disorders may contribute to progression of Alzheimer's disease. There is also accumulating evidence that cerebrovascular disease caused by hypertension and atherosclerosis may play a role in Alzheimer's disease. Cerebrovascular disease is the second most common cause of acquired cognitive impairment and dementia and likely contributes to cognitive decline in Alzheimer's disease. In fact, many of the common risk factors of cerebrovascular disease such as hypertension, diabetes and hyperlipidemia are also recognized to greatly increase the risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. So here some of the cause of Alzheimer's disease is discussed on the previous slide. We discussed about beta accumulation of beta amyloid peptide, and here vascular disorders may contribute to progression of Alzheimer's disease is discussing. There is also accumulating evidence that cerebrovascular disease caused by hypertension and atherosclerosis may play a role in Alzheimer's disease. So, hypertension as well as atherosclerosis can lead to Alzheimer's disease. Cerebrovascular disease is the second most common cause for acquired cognitive impairment and dementia and likely contributes to cognitive decline in Alzheimer's disease. Many of the common risk factors for cerebrovascular diseases such as hypertension, diabetes, hyperlipidemia, these all can be lead to Alzheimer's disease. These are risk factors of Alzheimer's disease, which are the hypertension, diabetes, hyperlipidemia, etc. Now, treatment for Alzheimer's disease. No treatment stop or reverse its progression, though some may temporarily improve symptoms. So there is no such effective treatments for Alzheimer's disease, though some may temporarily improve symptoms. Affected people increasingly rely on others for assistance, often placing a burden on the caregiver. So affected people need an intense care. Affected people increasingly rely on others for assistance. Exercise programs may be beneficial with respect to activities of daily living and can potentially improve outcomes. So exercise can be done to improve potentially improve outcomes. Behavioral problems or psychosis due to dementia are often treated with antipsychotics, but this is not usually recommended as there is a little benefit and an increased risk of early death. So, behavioral problems or psychosis due to dementia are often treated with antipsychotics. Antipsychotics can be given for behavioral problems and psychosis, but this is not recommended due to an increased risk of early death. So that's all for Alzheimer's disease. Now let's move to Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease is a neurodegenerative disorder that affects predominantly dopamine producing, that is dopaminergic neurons in a specific area of the brain called substantia nigra. So we all know Parkinson's disease is a neurodegenerative disorder and it is caused by the degeneration or destruction of the neurons in the specific area of the brain. The area is called substantia nigra. Parkinson's disease, also known as paralysis agitans, results from widespread destruction of that portion of the substantia nigra. So I have already told that the neurons in the substantia nigra are affected. The particular portion of the substantia nigra is called pars compacta that sends dopamine secreting nerve fibers to the caudate nucleus and putamen. The disease is characterized by rigidity of much of the musculature of the body. So, rigidity is one of the characteristic feature of Parkinson disease, and the second one is involuntary tremor of the involved areas even when the person is resting at a fixed rate of 3 to 6 cycles per second. Involuntary tremor means it's a neurological disorder that causes involuntary and rhythmic shaking, mainly rhythmic shaking of the involved areas, even when the person is resting at a fixed rate of 3 to 6 cycles per second. And the third characteristic is serious difficulty in initiating a movement, which is called akinesia. So the initiation of a movement is difficult in the patients of Parkinson's disease. These particular characteristics or this difficulty is called akinesia. And the fourth characteristic is postural instability caused by impaired postural reflexes leading to poor balance and falls. So continuous falls are happening in the patients of Parkinson's disease due to postural instability. And the fifth characteristic is other motor symptoms including dysphagia which means impaired ability to swallow, and speech disorders, GAN disturbances, and fatigue. GAN disturbances is the person's manner of walking. The causes of these abnormal motor effects that we have discussed above are unknown. However, the dopamine secreted in the caudate nucleus and putamen is an inhibitory transmitter. Therefore, destruction of the dopaminergic neurons. Dopaminergic neurons means the neurons which produce dopamine in the substantia nigra of the Parkinsonian patient theoretically would allow the caudate nucleus and putamen to become overly active and possibly cause continuous output of excitatory signals to the corticospinal motor control system. These signals would overly excite many or all the muscles of the body, thus leading to rigidity. We already said that the destruction of the dopaminergic neurons are happening in the substantia nigra of the Parkinsonian patient. Theoretically, it would allow the caudate nucleus and putamen to become overly active due to the presence of dopamine secreting neurons in that areas to become overly active. So they become overly active due to the presence of dopamine secreting neurons and possibly cause continuous output of an excitatory signals to the corticospinal motor control system, and they produce an output of excitatory signals to the corticospinal motor control system. So this caudate nucleus and putamen will overly active and they send signals, excitatory signals to the corticospinal motor control system. These signals would overly excite many or all of the muscles of the body, thus leading to rigidity. So these signals are leading muscular rigidity. Here the symptoms of Parkinson's disease is picturized. What are the symptoms? Stooped posture, masked face, back rigidity, forward tilt of trunk, reduced arm swing, hand tremor, flexed elbows and wrists, tremors in the legs, slightly flexed hip and knees, shuffling, short-stepped gait. These are the common symptoms of a Parkinson's diseased person. Some of the feedback circuit might easily oscillate because of high feedback gains after loss of their inhibition, leading to the tremor of Parkinson's disease. This tremor is quite different from that of cerebellar disease because it occurs during all working hours and therefore is an involuntary tremor. In contradiction to cerebellar tremor, which occurs only when the person performs intentionally initiated movements and therefore is called intention tremor. As I have mentioned earlier, involuntary tremor is a main characteristic or important characteristic of Parkinson disease. This tremor is quite different from that of cerebellar disease because it occurs during all waking hours and therefore is an involuntary tremor. That we already know is an involuntary tremor because it occurs during all waking hours. In contradiction to cerebellar tremor, which occurs only when the person performs intentionally initiated movements and is called intention tremor. So, the involuntary tremor is also called the intention tremor because it occurs only when the person performs intentionally initiated movements. So, it's also called intention tremor. The akinesia that occurs in Parkinson disease is often much more distressing to the patient than are the symptoms of muscle rigidity and tremor because to perform even the simplest movement in severe Parkinsonism, the person must exert the highest degree of concentration, the mental effort, even mental anguish that is necessary to make the desired movement is often at the limit of the patient's willpower. Then, when the movements do occur, they are usually stiff and staccato in character instead of smooth. The cause of this akinesia is still speculative. Here, the difficulty possessed by a Parkinsonian patient is described. Akinesia, that is, the difficulty to initiate a movement, is very much distressing than symptoms of muscle rigidity and tremor. Because to perform even the simplest movement in severe Parkinsonism is very much difficult, which exert mental effort, mental anguish, etc. Mental distress are applied or they possess some mental stresses to initiate a movement that is necessary to make desired movements is often at a limit of patient's willpower. The moments all are according to the patient's willpower, but it is very difficult for the Parkinsonian patient to start a or to initiate a movement. So here the difficulty possessed by a Parkinsonian patient is described, and akinesia is much difficult than the other symptoms like muscle rigidity and tremor. Then, when the movements do occur, they are usually stiff and staccato in character instead of smooth. So, the movements when occur, it is difficult to start, but when occur, it is usually stiff and staccato. Staccato is a musical term for notes that are played quickly and sharply. It's usually is a musical term and nothing but it means it's quickly and sharply. The movement is quick and sharp and stiff. The cause of this akinesia is still speculative. The cause of akinesia is still speculative. However, dopamine secretion in the limbic system, especially in the nucleus accumbens, is often decreased along with a decrease in the basal ganglia. It has been suggested that this might reduce the psychic drive for motor activity so greatly that akinesia is result. So, as a result of the decreased secretion of dopamine in the limbic system, especially in the nucleus accumbens, it has been suggested that this might reduce the psychic drive for motor activity and so greatly akinesia results. The greater cause of akinesia is due to the decreased or reduced dopamine secretion in the limbic system. Now let's see what are the treatments can be put forward towards Parkinson disease. First, we will look for the treatment with IDOPA. Administration of the drug IDOPA to patients with Parkinson disease usually ameliorates many of the symptoms, especially the rigidity and akinesia. By using this drug called IDOPA can reduce the symptoms like or the intensity can reduce the intensity of the symptoms like rigidity and akinesia. The reason for this is believed to be that IDOPA is converted in the brain into dopamine, and dopamine then restores the normal balance between inhibition and excitation in the caudate nucleus and putamen. So IDOPA can induce or can produce dopamine. This drug is a dopamine producing drug, which I have mentioned earlier. And it can restore the normal balance between inhibition and excitation in the caudate nucleus and putamen. Administration of dopamine itself does not have the same effect because dopamine has a chemical structure that will not allow it to pass through the brain barrier, even though the slightly different structure of IDOPA does allow it to pass. So this is not a permanent treatment, or it will not give the same effect because dopamine has a chemical structure that will not allow to pass through the blood brain barrier, but slightly different structure of IDOPA does allow it to pass. Next, the treatment with idiprenal. Another treatment for Parkinson disease is a drug idiprenal. This drug inhibits monoamine oxidase, which is responsible for destruction of most of the dopamine after it has been secreted. So the destruction of dopamine is mainly caused by monoamine oxidase. So this drug can inhibit the production of monoamine oxidase. Therefore, any dopamine that is released remains in the basal ganglion tissues for a longer time. As a result of the inhibition of monoamine oxidase, any dopamine that is released remains in the basal ganglion tissues for a longer time. In addition, for reasons not understood, this treatment helps to slow destruction of the dopamine secreting neurons in the substantia nigra. So another useful effect of this treatment is, the reasons are not understood, but this treatment helps to slow destruction of the dopamine secreting neurons in the substantia nigra. Therefore, appropriate combinations of IDOPA therapy along with ideprenyl therapy usually provide much better treatment than use of one of these drugs alone. So, a combination of IDOPA and ideprenyl can be much more effective than the single usage. Now the treatment with the transplanted fetal dopamine cells. Here, transplantation of dopamine secreting cells, the cells that are obtained from the brains of an aborted fetus into the caudate nuclei and putamen, has been used with some short-term success to treat Parkinson disease. So here the dopamine secreting cells from the brains of an aborted fetus is taken, and it is introduced to the caudate nuclei and putamen. It is a short-term success. The cell do not live for more than a few months. If persistence can be achieved, this would become a treatment of the future. Now, treatment by destroying part of the feedback circuitry in the basal ganglia. Because abnormal signals from the basal ganglia to the motor cortex cause most of the abnormalities in the Parkinson disease, multiple attempts have been made to treat these patients by blocking these signals surgically. So one of the major cause for Parkinson disease is the abnormal signals that are sent from basal ganglia to the motor cortex. So by blocking these signals surgically, we can treat this Parkinson disease. For a number of years, surgical lesions were made in the ventrolateral and ventroanterior nuclei of the thalamus, which blocked part of the feedback circuit from the basal ganglia to the cortex. Variable degrees of success were achieved, as well as sometimes serious neurological damage. So how this process takes place is described here. For a number of years, surgical lesions were made in ventrolateral and anterior ventral nuclei of the thalamus, which blocked part of the feedback circuit from basal ganglia to the cortex. Variable degree of success were achieved by these processes, as well as sometimes serious neurological damage also occurred. In monkeys with Parkinson disease, lesions placed in the subthalamus have been used, sometimes with surprisingly good results. But in monkeys, good results have been achieved by lesions placing in the subthalamus. So that's all for Parkinson disease. So thank you all.